Welcome back to RichGfx. If you're new to the channel, my name is Richard Carpenter, a web designer and illustrator, and in today's tutorial we're going to be designing an 80s inspired poster design. Start off with the new A4 size document. You can quickly select the A4 preset from within the new document window by going to print and then select the A4 option. And before we jump in head first, I've made a few notes to help you out. So the two fonts we'll be using throughout the tutorial will be Stormphase and 8-Bit Wonder. I've also linked these down in the description. I've also noted down the hex values of all the gradients we're going to be using throughout the tutorial as well. Select the type tool and type out the 80s. Change the font to the Stormphase font and then just increase the font size as big as you can get it. Select and expand the text. And then using the direct selection tool, we just want to get rid of these three gaps on the first word. So select the endpoints and just overlap them back to where they would have originally started. Once you've closed up them gaps, select the text layer and then from within the Pathfinder tool, select the Unite option just to merge them changes into one shape. Next, make a copy of the text by going to Edit, Copy, and then go to Edit, Paste in place. With the text still selected, change the colour to a red or something else which stands out, and then using the arrow keys on the keyboard, move the text up by about 10 pixels, and then using the centre back shortcut option, Control open square bracket, just put or position the red text behind the original. We're now going to turn these two shapes into a blend, just so when we start adding the different strokes and the gradients on there, it still retains that 3D look. So select the top layer and then select the blend tool, select the first layer and then select the back layer, then double click the blend tool icon, change the spacing to specified steps, and then just use something like 100. Once you're happy with the blend, go to Object, Blend, Expand, and then just select the Unite option from within the Pathfinder tool, and once Illustrator's done its thing, it'll convert the blend into one shape. Change the text back to red, and assuming you've still got the original copied to the clipboard, we can go to Edit, Paste in place. Next we're going to start adding our gradients, so we'll start with the shape at the back first, which uses gradient 2, and you want to add the colour swatches in the order from top to the bottom. And for this gradient I've just evenly spaced these out 0, 25, 50, 75 and 100, and we just leave the gradient angle at 0 degrees. Once you've added the gradient, we want to add a 2 pixel stroke using the colour 9A2B91, and then from within the stroke options panel, we just want to make sure that the cap is set to round cap and the corners are set to a round join, just to make sure the edges are nicely smoothed off. Next we can add our gradient to the front layer, so select the black text layer, then add gradient 1, again in the order from top to the bottom. So we've got our first swatch at 0%, then we've got our second swatch at 35, 50, 65 and then 100, and we just want to make sure that this gradient angle is set to 90 degrees. Next we want to add two strokes to the front text layer, an outer stroke and an inner stroke. So the outer stroke will use the same purple colour as we did for the back or 3D part of the text, and we'll just leave that at 1 pixels. And the inner stroke needs to be a white stroke. We'll use the offset path tool to create this one. So to create the inner stroke, first select the text, or make sure the text is selected, and go to Object, Path, Offset Path. Check the preview option and just create a -0.5, and then remove the solid fill colour and change the stroke path to a white. And the stroke weight, again we can use 0.5, between 0.5 and 1 depending on how much you want it to stand out. Once you're happy with the way the text is looking, we just want to ungroup everything by making a selection and going to Object, Ungroup, and then individually regroup each letter together. So just drag a selection around and just press Ctrl G on the keyboard. And then we can start moving or bunching the letters up together. And once you've bunched up all the letters and you're happy with the way it looks, just make a selection around everything and regroup it all as one. Vertically and horizontally centre that within the artboard. And then we can move to the next part, which is going to be creating the background. So to create the background, the first thing we want to do is just hide our text layer and lock it into place, and then select the rectangle tool and create a rectangle which covers the artboard. Remove the stroke fill, and then for the gradient we want to change the gradient and use the freeform gradient. If you don't have access to the freeform gradients, then you can use something like a gradient mesh. So once you click on the freeform gradient option, you should get these 4 points already on there, and what we can do, we can just utilise these straight away. So from the top left we want to use a colour of 8E58A4. For the top right colour we want to use B52268. For the bottom right colour we want to use 9A2B91, and then finally for the bottom left colour we can use B52268. And then we want to add another point in the centre and change that to a dark purple colour, which will be 251122. And then we just want to create another point around here and change that colour to 9A2B91. Once you're happy with the background, we can start adding some more of our background elements. So the next thing we're going to add is the grid. So if you click and hold on the line segment tool, bring out the flyout menu and select the rectangular grid tool, and then just drag the grid over the background. If you double click on the rectangular grid tool, it brings up the options box, and we can just manually specify the number of dividers. For now I'm just going to leave it as 10, and then we just want to add a white stroke just to make the cells stand out. Once you've finished adding the stroke, select the grid and go to the transparency panel and change the blend mode to soft light. And then we just want to make sure that the grid is vertically and horizontally centered within our artboard. Next we want to unhide our text layer and just make sure that the text layer itself is above the background and the grid layer. And then just relock the background layer and the grid layer in place just to stop from moving, and then we can start adding our other poster elements. So there's something I like to do within my poster design just to add a bit more depth to the background, is to use a couple of random shapes, different sizes, different colours. So the first thing we can add is a triangle. So selecting the pen tool, we can just create a simple triangle. Fill the triangle with a dark colour so it stands out, and then move the triangle behind the grid layer. And then we can either change the blend mode or lower the opacity just so it doesn't stand out as much. And then we can start adding random shapes. So I'm going to stick with an ellipse, and I'm just going to use a standard white ellipse and randomly position the ellipses around the poster. And I'm going to tweak the size just so they're not all the same. So I'll use a couple of big ones and a couple of small ones, and again just randomly position these around the poster. And once we've got all our text on there, it might be that we actually change these around or even add more. So for the next part, you want to start thinking about adding the text to the poster. Obviously we need to finish off the sentence which should say bring back the 80s. So using the type tool and a mixture of our Storm Phase and 8-bit Wonder font, we can add our text on there. So once you've added all your text elements within the poster, we can now look and see where we can add further detail. So I think it would be nice to bring some of these gradient colours to some of the elements actually within the poster. So the first thing we can do is create a thin rectangle coming from the top part of the text. So create the top one, move the duplicates at the bottom, and then if we create a blend just to make sure that they're evenly spaced together. And then once you've created the blend, if you just want to go to Object, Blend, Expand, then Object, Ungroup, and then we can just change these colours to match that of our gradient. Group the rectangles together, and then we can repeat this on the opposite side. We can also duplicate these shapes again and rotate them vertically and actually have these positioned behind our triangle. So if we move the layer below our triangle layer, select the triangle, go to edit, copy, edit, paste in place, and then select the lines, Shift M on the keyboard for the shape builder tool, hold down the Alt key and just draw a line straight the way across. And because we actually duplicated the triangle, it doesn't affect the original triangle, but it still allows us to cut away the lines and have it protruding from underneath. There's another way we can still add depth to the poster, and that's to use a shape fairly big but then blur it out so it looks like it's in the front but your focus is on the middle of the poster. So using the 8-bit Wonder font, just type out a simple X, right click, create outline, and then we want to use the same gradient as we have done for our text, and then we can just enlarge and rotate the shape, move it into position, and then we can apply a Gaussian blur. So go to Effect, Blur, Gaussian blur, and if we do it by about 25 and then press OK, make a duplicate, make it a little bit smaller and then position it elsewhere within the poster. And if you wanted to, you could actually go to Window Appearance and just adjust the blur effect on the second one, just perhaps reduce it down to about 15. So it still gives you that blur effect, but it looks like it's a lot further away. Then once you've continuously built up your layers, you've added a few shapes, you could even add a further detail and more text, just build up the poster, then you could have something that looks a bit like this one. And that's it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give me a like down below. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.